This is a lesson walkthrough for Grade 8, Unit 5, Day 2 and Day 3 lesson, Key Players of World War II. This lesson has a lot of great materials in the Passport to Social Studies student workbook, so make sure to check out page 4, 5, and 7 through 15 to see those materials. And make sure to delete these slides before distributing them to students. Focus question for this lesson is what conditions led to the rise of totalitarianism and fascism? It connects to last lesson where students compared democracy, fascism, and communism. By the end of the lesson, students will read biographies to identify the perspectives of key players of World War II. The introduction and model portion of this lesson contains a lot of review from Unit 4, which discuss the Great Depression. And that's because we want students to make the connections between the fact that the Great Depression wasn't just occurring in the United States, it was happening all over Europe, and it was a major cause of World War II. So here you're going to talk about the bank runs, and again, this is just a review from Unit 4. So the bank runs and Great Depression unemployment rates give students a chance to describe what's going on in the country and what the relationship of the citizens of the country are to its government. This is going to be a great way for students to connect United States history to global history. The next portion of this lesson is going to have students examine two different speeches, one by Adolf Hitler and one by FDR. For students, they're not going to know the speaker of these speeches, so they're looking for clues in the text to figure out who's speaking. Remember, these will connect to the differences between fascism and democracy, so you can connect to the previous lesson throughout this model. This is the first speech, and you can read it aloud or have a student read it aloud. You can annotate on the board, or if you're sharing in a video lesson, you can use your annotation tool to point out key terms. You can share this speech with students in a text document, or have them annotate it right here in the slide, or if you're using a Pear Deck or Nearpod model, that's a great way to have students annotate it. And you might have students circle words like unemployed, ruined, economy. After you've read the speech with students, have them discuss the main idea, and you can have them make a prediction as to who gave the speech. Based on student knowledge at this point in the year, a lot of kids are going to guess that FDR gave the speech. The second speech, which was given by FDR during the Great Depression in the United States, is shorter. And again, you can have students annotate it. You can annotate it with them in a Google Meet or Zoom lesson, or on the board in person. You can hand these out in paper or distribute them however you see fit. So give students a chance to answer those questions. And the blue box always means that they should be answering in the slide, or you can create a different method for collecting student answers. And then you're going to give them the answer to the question. So speech 1 was given by Adolf Hitler, and speech 2 was given by FDR. Give them a chance to reflect on whether that changes how they look at the speech. You can go back look at them. You can have a discussion at this point if that fits your class. You're also giving them a little bit more context here, or review. So remembering that the Treaty of Versailles caused Germany to pay billions of dollars in reparations, caused an economic depression in Germany, and also that Europe went through some political changes and ideology changes between the two world wars. All of that, again, is review from the previous lesson. This is also setting up the independent work, where students are going to read about a key leader and answer some questions in a graphic organizer. So the next step is independent work. There are 5 World War II leaders listed, and students are going to be completing the Google Docs graphic organizer. You can, of course, adapt this however you want. The graphic organizer is available and linked into the slides, but they're also in the student workbooks. And the leader biographies can be found both in the slide deck and in the student workbook. But if you're going to use the student workbook, you can just delete those slides so that doesn't confuse students. The graphic organizer right now looks something like this. So you've got students will be answering the country that that the leader is from, influential facts from early life, their role during World War I, their rise to power, their role during World War II. And then this question at the end is important for later on in this lesson, answering how would this leader want their country to respond to the events starting World War I, i.e., would Hitler believe it necessary to invade Poland? That's going to come up again later on in the lesson when students pick an event from World War I and create a conversation between two of the leaders. So in the slide deck are all of the leader biographies, but again, it's linked in a little bit more cohesively in the student workbook. And you can find that if you visit the URL on the video, or if you just find your Unit 5 student workbook and look at slides 7 through 15. For this portion of the lesson, you, as the teacher, should consider how are you going to assign the World War II leaders. The readings are different for each leader. Some are longer, some are shorter, some are more complex. So you can decide based on whatever fits your group. The students will be sharing out their information, and if you're doing that in small groups, you might think about your seating arrangements. You might think about how that lesson is going to play out. Take a look at the readings themselves and figure out what readings might fit different students best. That's of course up to whatever works best for your class. In the final 2 slides of this lesson, you're simply having students wrap up and providing a check for understanding. So this wrap-up slide is a great place just to have students share a little bit of what they've learned in their reading about the key leader that they are assigned. And in the check for understanding slide, you're having them make connections between what they read and the start of World War II. This lesson, again, is going to continue in your next meeting. So check out video number 2 for a walkthrough of the second half of this lesson.